Hello and welcome to Tabletop Miniatures. We are lucky enough to have Alessio Cavatore on the show today.
Hello.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for making yourself available. And because we spoke briefly for about 5 minutes last week, but you had some terrible lurgy and were
I
losing your
did.
voice.
I
And
did.
but glad to see you looking as fresh as a daisy today, Alessio.
Better, much better. Thank you. Much better.
And yeah, I think today, but basically, we were just going to sort of use the force, go ahead and talk about, how you put games together, certain themes, and yeah, listen to how it's done from someone who's done it. And I think the first thing that we've got to mention is you have been involved with this book here.
Certainly. Yes.
And as you know, I'm someone who is a big fan of bolt action, and I do play Soviets
You
quite.
do. Ah, okay.
And one thing that I was really pleased about to see in the rules is the new sort of flavor list stuff for the NKVD, the paratroopers. I've forgotten what the airborne force is,
In the airborne, yeah.
and also there's another group as well. It's the naval infantry.
The Naval Brigade. NKVD, Airborne, and Naval Brigade. Naval Brigade. Black Death. Yeah.
Fantastic. And in terms of putting the rules together, because you had quite a sort of decent size, I think, playtest group as well.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, to be to assign the merit where it belongs. These books, all the Armies of series for this third edition of Bolt Action, the process is as follows. So we first of all, we produce a manuscript, and normally Beth is the one that gets absolutely sent forth and starts the fight by going basically through all the from the first source is the old armies of the Soviet Union, in this case for this book, so the Armies of book. But then on top of that, what Beth does is she collects all sort of material from all the other supplements, campaign books, all the other things which Warlord has published through the years, where units have been added. The Stalingrad supplement, the Case Blue supplement in this case. So things get taken, units get taken from those books. No, not 100%. I mean, some of them are extremely specialized. This thing only appeared in this
oh yeah,
particular
yeah.
place once. So you kind of go, maybe we don't put it in the armies of the Soviet Union. Maybe it will still be part of a future campaign book. But if a unit is fairly common, then gets taken and added to the armies of the Soviet Union, so to this book. So this book have more stuff than the previous books, and obviously have been updated for third edition, refreshed. We had a look at the army special rules again. So basically, Beth produces the initial manuscript with all that stuff in, and then hands it to me, and I take over and do a major edit, basically chop and change and make sure that everything is more or less both fitting with version 3, and we attempt to make it balanced, obviously, as balanced as possible, in relation with the past books and the future books, and try to keep it allegedly, arguably, in the right place, because obviously this is not there's never a perfect balance. There's always alleged balance, or arguable balance, because you cannot ever be 100% sure of balance with special rules and interactions. But yeah, so and basically I do that. Then it goes into editing from a language point of view, from a consistency point of view. There's Dan at Warlord that does that, and then it goes to Osprey for layout and more passages of layout and checking, etc. So yeah, it's a complex process.
Yeah, I can see that there's a lot of work in it. And but just building on something you said, the incorporation of some of the unusual units.
Mhm.
I'm so glad to see one of them that I've actually been working on. I produced the Stalingrad T-34s for the factory,
Right.
and for the Ministry of Miniatures, we did a little battle, but I've got a worker crew in it,
Ah,
and,
there
and
you
I've
go.
I've even produced it so there's no scratches on the paint because it's new, but there's actually um, I've actually put cigarette stubs on it with ash, and
Wow.
I've actually got coffee rings on it. but this this
Okay.
but this weekend I couldn't resist. I did another one, and the lady there has got a traditional lady's head covering that the Russian sort of women used to wear. I think it's a kokoshnik, and
Right.
but she reminds me a bit of Maggie Thatcher when she was driving some Challenger tank,
Right.
and so it
Okay.
reminds me of that. But also I've worked at sort of London auction houses, and I still deal with antiques. And um, one of the guys off the Antiques Roadshow, who's an expert on porcelain figures, was saying that there was um, some of the great sets that were made in the 18th century of the Italian comedy figures. Those figures, when you put them next to each other, sort of Columbine and all that sort of commedia
Yes.
dell'arte
Wow.
stuff, and
A commedia
and
dell'arte. Yes. 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 Those famous masks. Yes. Yes. Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. And so you get Harlequin and Columbine standing in this way, looking like they were flirting. But I chose these two figures because it looked like one was shouting and one was listening.
Very good. Very
Um,
good.
so
Wow.
that's my artistic justification
I
um,
see.
for
Wow,
wargaming.
it's interesting that you bring that out. And yes, I've seen figurines. Speaking on of remaining in the war games, well, not war games, but at least in the figurines and miniatures area. There's a fantastic store in Paris called Le Drapeau de France, which is just next to the Louvre. Is really here you can kind of see the Louvre from there, and is near between the Louvre and the Royal Palace, and is in the colonnade. Really, if you go to Paris and you're into this industry, you have to visit this place. It's tiny, but it's a labyrinth, covered shelves, covered in all sorts of miniatures from flats, ancient flats, the 1800s, like, well, not ancient is not the right word, antique, like flats with court life in the French
Oh,
courts,
wonderful.
but and it goes into obviously huge amount of Napoleonic figures of all sort of scales and systems, and but there's everything, all ages, there's pin-ups, there's all sort of incredible stuff there. So definitely worth a visit if you're into toy soldiers, including the Commedia dell'arte figurines inspired to this historical masks and costumes of Italian tradition, which are, I find, always quite sinister. They have this strange, the Pulcinella with a big nose and things there. Yeah, slightly disturbing sometimes, but yeah, in a good way.
Yes, yeah, yeah. I think it's a fun thing. There's lots of communication going on there, and it did work on several levels. A lot of that stuff. A lot of it was crude and crass, which is my um, primary interest in, particularly Harlequin. Some of the stuff he got up to was quite challenging. But isn't it interesting that we're actually talking about war games miniatures, and we sailed off for once on a mildly cultured tangent? I think that's got to be a first. Um, but yes, yeah, it's also I'm working on a series of drunken Russians, drunken Soviet troops, and but I've got a sort of commissar that goes with them who's taking down notes. And so I was trying to build a set in that sort of way as well. So it looks good on the shelf, and they sort of communicate. What one's looking at the one like that, another one's going to be looking like he's about to start a fight. One's just doing a sort of Russian, what's that Russian Cossack dance as well. But they're all holding sort of beer or wine bottles. It's taken me quite a long time to do, but hopefully, God willing, it should be worth it in the end.
Yes, I was. You were saying about making miniatures which form like a communication between two pieces and look like interact, and that reminded me of something that came out recently when we did the fourth edition of Kings of War with Mantic, and I rediscovered because I was away from that system for a few years, and when I went back, one of the things that I rediscovered, which I think is amazing and is really, really one of the strengths of that system, is that uh, the miniatures in the rank and file units, in the ranked units, are not removed. They are a single piece that fights together, accumulate damage markers, and then at some point is removed when it breaks morale and runs. But the fact that they are fixed on the base, it means that people make dioramas. Every unit is a moving diorama. You see these incredible scenes they portray, the Lord in the middle surrounded by dead troops and defending, and so it is actually quite, some of the armies are very spectacular because of that.
Actually, that's nice to see that because I mean, I when it comes down to it, I mean, I convert a lot of my troops. I've got a Hiwi figure here, um, and once again, that's in your German book, which is good, and it's under sort of Osttruppen, but it's and I try and get character like that, but having single base figures as part of units where you keep removing objects, I think when I first started wargaming, I did quite like I put lots of bits on the base and chopped other figures up, and that was all for Warhammer 40k. And so it's quite common for me to have things like half a dead Gene Stealer on the Terminator's base, something like that,
Yep.
and or lots of dead skeletons spread over stuff. But after a while, suddenly the price of the figures shot up, so I was less likely to chop them up, but also it has stripped out a lot of that character that is there in um, Kings of War bases. And
It's
Jerry,
funny. It's funny that you said dead skeletons.
dead skeleton.
Only a wargamer will use that expression. It's like because skeletons tend to be very dead normally, not the ones that are animated and fight you. On the other end, those are not dead.
Yes,
Yep.
I think I may have used dead skeletons in a particular way there. And well, I suppose when you think about it, um, we're surrounded by skeletons the whole time. You heard this first on Tabletop Miniatures. This is our deep dive. Um, but I suppose we just see them with their clothes on, don't we? So it's walking around. But yeah, it's nice to see. Yeah, I have seen a couple of those Kings of War pieces, and they do look fantastic. And it really does add something to the game where it's not well, it's almost sculptural having this diorama there, and looks much more thematic, etc. And yeah, Jerry from Beasts of War is has tried to get me to go in full in with Kings of War, and I've got a couple of friends who are interested in it. So I think at some point, Alessio, I think I've just got to get through this year with the bolt action stuff. I think because I have quite a large pile of potential on my desk out in the shed that needs working on. But it's but also with other games as well. Is there anything else that you're particularly proud of, or anything that you think looks fantastic like Kings of War when you've got these dioramas moving around the table?
Well, I mean, the Kings of War is certainly being strongly influenced by systems like Black Powder or Hail Caesar, because again, in those systems, units are ranked up units. Obviously, it's all rank and flank, and but the units are not individually based. The models are not individually based. You don't need to remove models to mark casualties. So it's a very different system from other types of rank and flank games. Uh, and therefore, in those historical games that Warlord Games produces, you can do the same thing. You can actually make fantastic dioramas of these units, with officers, wounded soldiers being carried, some firing. You can put a couple of guys at the back starting to run away, maybe with a sergeant shouting at them. So it doesn't have to be just the fantasy side. The historical games like Black Powder and Hell Caesar also lend themselves to that diorama units. And obviously, some people go a bit over over the top and make units that actually start to be confusing in game terms. That's another thing to keep in your mind, because so if you make a diorama of a unit and you put it in a square formation, but you use it as a normal line formation when you move around, etc. So your diorama can interfere with the rules and make the game kind of incomprehensible. It's just like what? And in a fantasy setting, you could put maybe too
Yes, yeah.
many enemies there, and you start to go, what army is this? It's just a mix of two units. It's like, oh, what? So basically, it's cool to make dioramas, but I think, particularly for me, because I'm a gamer first, I guess, and less of a modeler collector. I think I love those things, but always as long as they don't become confusing. When you start to look at an army and go, I'm not sure what I'm looking at, that I think is going to be too far. Basically, it becomes more like a collection, a cool collection, a diorama, but not so much a gaming uh, set of, say, gaming army.
Yes, yeah, I can see with Napoleonics, particularly British, suddenly one minute they're in a line, but the models there are all doing a last stand at Waterloo in a square. You're automatically as the opponent just going to read it as that a lot of the time, aren't you? So and it's
Yeah.
so it must affect the game, and there will be occasions when that happens. And but yeah, that exciting stuff. But also with there's obviously more books coming out. You've got I think the Japanese, and you've got various allied forces as well coming out, which I'm quite excited to see more books. Whoa!
Like this one, for example. Yes.
Can I just say for anyone watching it, I was not primed about that, and so I am genuinely surprised. And when's that coming out, Alessio?
I don't know the exact date, but normally it's about 3 months from the last one. So Soviet Union was out now-ish, so in about 3 months, roughly. That
Oh,
would be my
okay.
it would be my guess. I don't really know exact
Oh,
dates.
interesting. Oh,
I
yeah.
honestly don't because I'm working on books which are like, you know, a year at least ahead of manuscripts and stuff. So it's like, when did we do this? When was it coming out? I don't know. For me, it's like a year ago, right? These books we're talking about now. So
Oh, so when I'm asking, yeah, I can see that, sort of, and you'll be working on the next one or two, aren't you? So,
oh yeah, or
and
three, or three. Yeah,
oh, okay. And it's actually, I've been watching a couple of Finnish films about the Winter War, etc.
right.
And so I'm actually quite excited about doing Finnish, probably continuation war at some point.
Hmm.
And I can't remember, but I think the Finns might be getting their own book on the release schedule at some point.
I don't think they were going to get a full book, but I think they will still have to share, but they will have to share with fewer than before because for example, we're taking the French. The French are going to get their own book, and therefore the book which include the Finns will not have the France in it. So obviously there will be fewer uh, other combat and the belligerents in there. So yes, it's not just the Finns, as far as I know. No.
Oh,
They
fantastic!
have to share a bit.
Oh, okay. No, 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 that's not a problem. I'm keen to get some of those on the tabletop. The only thing is, it's the films I've been watching are all in the Finnish language, and there's and but to be honest, I'm there for the action sequences
Have
anyway.
you seen Sisu?
Not yet, not yet. It's on.
Well, if you're into the action scenes, there's plenty of that in Sisu.
Oh, fantastic. Okay,
Slightly over the top,
slightly over the top, and it's
just a little bit.
oh yeah, but also it's nice seeing it's wonderful with the amount of films and media we've got with World War Two in this where when I was really into Lord of the Rings, which is my first love for tabletop gaming, as in playing. Um, it was Hero Quest that got me into it, but I mean, there's only three. There's a small canon of books, and then there's three films for Lord of the Rings. There's the Hobbit ones afterwards, which I'm glad they're there, but I think the way they got made was a bit last minute, and I didn't feel that they were to the same sort of standard as the originals.
I prefer the Lord of the Rings definitely to
Yeah,
the Hobbit
so
movies.
and but there were bits I did enjoy, but it's Yes, we've got
I
limited
think I think the
media.
target I think the target audience is different. I think Lord of the Rings is more for grown-ups, but the Hobbit movies are more for kids. That's my way of understanding what's going on, the
Oh,
difference.
oh yes, yeah, because I once likened it because we were having a conversation at work one morning because a lot of us used to get in for the full English basically on Thursdays. So we've been out quite often on the Wednesday, and the, half the table were Harry Potter fans,
Right?
and then half the table were sort of Lord of the Ring fans, and basically the Harry Potter people got very slightly offended that somebody said it was said who wasn't part of this conversation and said that it's all a load of kids books or something, and they all got really quite wound up. And but I said in all fairness, things like The Hobbit is probably for slightly older children who like maths, and that sort of calmed it down a bit. But
Yeah, and also I guess you can be a Lord of the Rings fan and a Harry Potter fan. The two are not exclusive, right? I like both. I like both. They're different for sure, but
Alessio, this is a revelation. Liking Lord of the Rings and Harry
And Harry
Potter.
Potter,
Yeah.
Star Wars and Star Trek. Oh my
Oh,
God.
yeah, I've got to admit, with the whole, I mean, my father was a massive Star Trek fan, and I think because he was so into it, it sort of put me off of it.
Right.
But at the same time, I mean, I had Star Wars come out, when I was a little boy. So it was the big thing. We got the figures, the toys were amazing. I was at the right age to appreciate Ewoks, and I think anyone who was a bit older was, oh no, the
But
Emperor's
yeah,
crackly.
that's a good example. I mean, when I say that I think they are for different audiences. Again, the um, even with Star Wars, there are some characters which, as a grown up, you kind of go, "Oh God," Jar Jar Binks. But if you're
Oh no,
but if you're a kid, it's fun. Yeah, it's
yeah.
it's different things for different people. Yeah,
I,
be
I,
tolerant.
I've got to miss. I tend to think of myself as fairly tolerant, but Jar Jar Binks is the one thing that really pushes it.
Yes.
Uh, and but at the same time, the what I think it's probably part of me that hasn't moved since a child or developed since a child was when one of those Ewoks gets shot by the Scout Walker. The other one tries to get his mate up and get him running along. um,
And he
I said,
says something. He says something in Ewok that sounds like "Mama."
oh yeah.
It's
Oh, that's
it's
even darker.
heartrending. Yes, 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 yes. It says something that I always interpreted as "Mama." I was just like, "Oh." Yes. Listen again. I'll make you even sadder. I think I kind of at least is a two vowels word. It's like, well. It's like, oh
Yeah,
no.
Alessio, that is so dark.
Isn't this
Yeah,
just?
yeah, it's much worse. It's much worse if Oh God, oh dear, I'm quite upset. I don't really. We've got to get this podcast. So we've got to get this video back. Oh, there's going to be a
Yes.
lot of very upset viewers, I think, in the comments here. And but yes, I think we were sort of talking about how World War Two's got all this amazing media surrounding it. Well, I say all this that it ranges in quality quite drastically, but there's a lot to
Yeah, and a
inspire
lot
you.
of that media is what inspired bolt action. For example, I mean, I never made a secret that for me, bolt action is Saving Private Ryan, Band of Brothers, The Longest Day. It's or A Bridge Too Far. One of those movies where you kind of uh, a Hollywood version of the war, not a. Yeah, so the it's not about realism, it's about dynamic cinematic action. And I think the name itself, Bolt Action, is a very fortunate name because obviously it's a very technical military term, but it has the word action in it, which is makes the whole thing work really
Action.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's a very good name, I think. Very good title for
Oh, all right.
the system.
Actually,
Bolt Action.
yeah, it does sound quite strong. And Yeah, because I've usually just read it as just looking at it, being fairly casual, just thinking bolt action. But what you're saying, it should really be bolt action,
or
like that sort of.
bolt action. But yes, it has, I think, it's a very good, dynamic, strong name. I really
Yeah,
think. I really,
uh,
really do think so.
absolutely. And because I mean, I mentioned that in a previous video about because, I'm a big fan of the Osprey book, and I get they've done it to me again, and um, they've got German tanks in Barbarossa, which is a period, building up to Stalingrad, and I've been doing videos with the Ministry of Miniatures where I come up with this scenario based on this with, roughly accurate um, participants as far as we can go for it. And now I've actually produced a load of tanks for Barbarossa now, and I've never regretted any of these projects, but it was quite nice actually doing a quick one with tanks, relatively speaking. I've just grabbed one of them quickly. Here we go. I've got a Beutepanzer here, another T-34, and
Right.
I've literally produced pretty much every tank in that book from using the Italieri slash Warlord kits. And some of the projects I've gone into, a bit like you're saying with the Hollywood style, the Enemy at the Gates film for Stalingrad.
True.
I've got a load of Russians that I've modelled as Strafbat. So half have got the rifles, half don't. I know that there'll be some, um, I think, sort of fairly well-informed history fanatics out there who would question whether that happened. And I think
Yeah,
that
and
I,
is an example again of that Hollywood thing. Is maybe it didn't happen, maybe it happened less than is portrayed, but it is very cinematic. And again, it represents very well that part of that role that we gave to the Soviet troops there, the all grim determination, they're rerolling a morale
oh yeah,
test. Is I always in that film is always struck me as very striking the speech that the commissar, the officer, is doing as he hands out the rifles and goes, one man has a rifle, one man gets a clip of ammunition. When the man carrying the rifle is killed, the other man picks up the rifle. He doesn't say if. He
yeah,
says
yeah, yeah,
when,
yeah.
which, I don't think is the best way of motivating your troops, I guess. It's like, perhaps he could have said if as opposed to when. Yep, grim, grim determination. Yes, yep.
I mean, it's a terrifying regime there, and that rule does work because it was there were the NKVD and the commissars with guns behind everyone, and but I do like the set of rules because I mean they were terrible to some of their own people, but also they saw it politically as a way of getting rid of undesirables who are in those Strafbat things, and I've actually produced um, a whole platoon of these guys where you've got a base here with them fighting over a rifle.
Wow.
And just to add flavor to that, I've used them in a few battles. I don't expect anything great from them.
Well, interesting. That's an example of what I was talking about before, which was the fact that sometimes mini diorama, like what you created there, it's a little mini diorama. It's two figures on a
Yes.
base
Yeah.
with an interaction with a story, etc. However, in game terms, I could look at it and go, if you were playing a gameable action of it with that, I would go, is that one man, two man? If I do a casualty, what happens? Do you remove the whole thing and replace it with one? So you see, it's starting to break the rules for aesthetic reasons, which is that subtle line of where you draw the line there.
Yes. Yeah. It's one of those things where it's definitely two men, but and you can see them really scrapping over that.
Hmm.
Um, and
So
I've
you
got
use that as two men in your
as,
in
as
your
two men.
unit. So you
Um,
okay?
I've got three full squads of them, and each one has a centerpiece double miniature, like sort of maquette sort of thing, just to add flavor in it. And yeah, because I think I did those. I who's it? I think it was John said something about the basing being not terribly strict, if you see what I mean.
Hmm.
And so I thought I can do that, and obviously you get the weapons teams where you can. Actually, this is the MMG for it.
Yeah,
It's a load of NKVD troops here,
yeah,
but
yeah.
they've got. But I've reproduced their leaflets, so
Right.
I've actually got their
Wow.
leaflets. So they're obviously out leafleting, but then the
And
enemies.
that's a classic, again, a very nice little diorama thing. When that unit will take casualties, you will have to put a little dice or something, a counter there to say one guy's dead, two guys are dead. So is that whenever you do that diorama approach, then you have to, yeah, make sure the game actually works if you want to use them. And also, it really depends. In competitive settings, people will be more strict with what you can and cannot do. In friendly settings, like John would say, John doesn't play competitive, he plays friendly, and the more evocative, the better for him. The
Oh
rules
yeah, yeah.
don't really matter. Often get in the way of the fun.
Oh, yeah. That's it. Actually, that's perfect. That's it perfectly in a series, isn't it? It's you've got to remember where the fun is,
Mm. And for some
and
people, it's in a different place from some other people, for sure.
oh, oh, oh yeah, I had to take down my first video because one of my friends was getting too much flack who was defending one point of view, and this is just miniature wargaming.
Wow.
And but I surprised that I thought I was being the sort of more historically motivated slash interested of the two parties where um, I find it I actually find it interesting how broad the wargaming church can be, and where I've got another friend who's really interested in the maths behind it, and he's an engineer, and he sees it as essentially a load of probability questions, really, with a sort of historical skin. And I suddenly realised that's how his mind works. Whereas I look at it and think, we've got history here. How can I model something using your rules or whatever? And then I usually inject a theme like this into it and think we've got to have those participants. And I like to have unusual victory conditions in some way. And I think something I really enjoyed was coming up with a envelopment scenario where the Russians heavily outnumbered the Germans who were blocking them, trying to keep them in the Kessel. But for every Russian unit that didn't leave the table, the Germans got a point, and then but for every unit that left, the Russians got a point basically. So it meant that to begin with, the Russians looked very powerful, and the Germans were just really trying to hold a line. And then, as some of those units were getting destroyed, really having to run from one end of the table to the other, and then some of them got off, it switched, and then the Germans outnumbered, and so it was very much asymmetrical from one side, and that switched throughout the game.
Yeah, those games can be incredibly fun. I mean, I often play stuff like that with the Perry Twins, a game where they do these scenarios which are often completely asymmetrical. I remember having because we make a map and then the resulting battle depends on how you maneuver on the strategic map. So I remember playing with one brigade of my troops against three brigades of enemies, and more were coming as reinforcements. So I was going to die. So
Okay.
the battle was literally, shall I just attempt to run away and not fight? Which, on the other hand, I thought, well, that wouldn't make a very good game. They set up the table and brought all these incredibly gorgeous toy soldiers. If my troops just retreat, retreat and run away and don't fight, that
Yeah.
would have been the sensible thing to do. But I was like, no, I can't. So I have to give them a game. I have to make something. So I went, instead of going, we are running away, disengage because clearly we're going to die. We went on, no, heroic last stand, like rear guard action. We're going to delay the enemy and save time for the main army to disengage, blah, blah, blah. So we kind of made like a brigade square. It was like, we're going to die. No, one step back. But again, fun games, very different. I noticed that our meeting is got 1 minute left of life
We've got
from
one
the
minute left, I'm afraid,
so
Alessio.
we should conclude by saying that
Does that mean it's time for us to run away?
Indeed. Yes. I think what we suddenly came up from this is that war games can be incredibly different, and different people will enjoy different way of playing war games, and there is nothing wrong with that. And people shouldn't like judge other people's way of having fun, and horses
I'm
for
so
courses.
I'm so glad you said that, Rod. No, there's only one way. It's my way, and we need to judge everyone who's against it.
Well, I think there will be a Warhammer tournament at the Warlord Games. Sorry, did I say Warhammer? A bolt action tournament at the Warlord Games HQ, which I insisted to create, which is called My Way.
My way.
Thinking of that.
Fantastic. Suddenly I can hear Sinatra's great song in my head. So
Exactly that. I did it my way.